Anyway, so we have Andrew Yang's potential. I still hope he runs for governor, man. Potential, or not governor, mayor of New York City run. But there's something else going on, and there's a lot to get into here. We can go on for a while. I don't want to go on forever about this, though. I want to keep it kind of brief.
Hey, there were the never Trumpers.
But something really interesting. So Bernie Sanders was on 60 Minutes last night, Sunday evening.
It was
and
beautiful.
He was asked by Anderson Cooper to, I guess, defend or comment on some of his previous comments about Cuba's former, was he a democratically elected leader? Fidel Castro. Anyway, it has rubbed some people the wrong way. So this is an article I have here pulled up from The Week, which is, I don't want to get into much, which by no means some like pro-Trump right-wing rag or anything. Like, they definitely seem to be defending Bernie in a lot of ways. Even they had to bring up, though, that Florida Democrats think Sanders' Castro comments could cost him the state in November. First things first, before we get too far into this, he lost like 67-35 to Hillary or something. That math even adds up, but he got blown out by Hillary last election in Florida. It's not like it's a state he's won in the past. Like, it wasn't even close. But they brought up something here very interesting. So first, we have Debbie. Can you pronounce that name? Is it Spanish? Mucarsel?
Mucarsi Pyle, but that's actually not a Spanish name. That's, if it's the E before the I, that's not of a Greek derivative.
Either way.
But in Peru, they hyphenate their names. So anyway, keep going.
Either way, I just wanted to say this. But they brought up an interesting point. They said, as the first South American immigrant member of Congress who proudly represents thousands of Cuban Americans, I find Senator Bernie Sanders' comments on Castro's Cuba absolutely unacceptable. She gets in further, but what I want to highlight here is, as this Dave Wasserman individual points out, is that this is a freshman Democrat who flipped a heavily Cuban GOP seat just 2 years ago. Like, this is the kind of stuff that Democrats want to hold moving forward into 2020. And then we see a Stephanie Murphy, who I believe is a Bloomberg supporter, keep in mind. But all same thing, whether the subject is Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Israel, or foreign policy challenges, Senator Sanders has consistently taken positions that are wrong on the merits and alienate many Florida voters now and in the general election if he is nominated. So we're definitely seeing a movement.
That's a very euphemistic way of saying, I'm out, I'm not supporting him.
I definitely think, and
I don't want the party mad at me, but this isn't my guy.
And this is one thing I'm not going to say all, but I have seen some, because it's been a pretty good news cycle for Bernie. Otherwise, he just won Nevada, which I don't want to do a whole video on, but people are really...
But Nevada's not a swing state,
but they're also really overblowing his Nevada performance. He did basically the same as he did last time. It's just there's no Hillary now, so he wins. Like if there was a Hillary, he would have lost again, but there's no Hillary, so he wins this time. It's kind of just more of what we've seen before. But the bigger thing is we're seeing this... I wish I had more clips. MSNBC was pulling their hair out when Bernie Sanders was winning Nevada on Saturday night. They were losing their minds. Like, they had no idea what to do. We're now starting to see this growing, and I think this is I can put more together, but this really sums up what I think of the growing Never Bernie movement. We definitely saw a Never Trump movement, right? That was there's still Never Trumpers, but Never Bernie is growing. It's one thing when there's senators in Florida who are just like, look, I have a large Cuban demographic that supports me. And I can't have them thinking I support someone who supports Fidel Castro.
I'll tell you why when you're done.
They have to, but this was a tweet I did not think in a million years I'd be seeing this. This is a tweet from Reagan Battalion, self-described place for conservative news and commentary, saying, CNN exposes Bernie Sanders and his lifelong support for communist dictators and communism, playing some of the videos we uncovered. Segment ends with this Bernie Sanders vision of socialism that's extended far beyond the Danish-style welfare state, as he likes to claim. That was CNN. We have CNN and Reagan Battalion now teaming up for this kind of, and they don't have it overtly here, but in a second I'll take you through the Never Bernie hashtag. But this is a movement that is growing, and I think it's something that's really funny because obviously it's not as big as the pro-Bernie movement, right? We're not going to sit here and say, Bernie better watch out because Never Bernie. But it is funny to see as he's getting closer and closer and closer and closer to this potential nomination, this growing fear, one, from the MSNBC part of the party, but two, just this idea that there's a lot of people making some, interesting bedfellows, I guess you could say, to defeat Bernie Sanders. And
well, I don't think they're interesting.
Funny.
I don't think it's necessarily strange bedfellows as much as Democrats have used progressives the progressive wing of the party, namely the Bernie Bros, as their shock troops for almost a decade. Okay? And they've been willing to turn an eye. It's like, oh, dude, if Antifa gets a little bit crazy and roughs up some, right-wing event or, embarrasses some Republicans or, throws a brick through a window of, this conservative establishment, we're going to criticize it online. But we kind of like that they're intimidating everybody because they're kind of on our side of the aisle, And then what happens is these mercenaries and these shock troops, sooner or later, come back to the castle and demand payment. And they're like, okay, we've gone out, we've burned all the villages that you wanted us to burn. Where's our money? And then the king's like, oh, crap, I didn't realize they were going to do it. And I didn't realize they were going to come back. And I didn't realize how expensive they were going to be. Yeah, let me think. We're going to get you paid. You know what I'm saying? And now the shock troops have come back and realized they're not getting paid by the establishment. The establishment never supported them in the first place. They just did a bunch of work for free, and now they're pissed off at the establishment. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for these Democrats that are turning Never Bernie because I'm like, you created this monster. You know what I'm saying? But I do think this monster will ultimately come after them. You know what I'm saying? And it'll do great damage to the party because here's the deal, man. You made a good point in our pre-show. One of the biggest problems with identity politics is everybody have thought that all Latinos are the same. And they don't realize if you're a Latino, okay, coming from Mexico, non-state actors have been what's ruining your life. Okay?
And what you're fleeing from.
What you're fleeing from. The cartels. And yes, there is corruption and sometimes the state is in bed with the cartels and everything, okay? But it's an asymmetrical system in which non-state actors are running the show and the government is small because of the non-state actors. So you have a little bit more faith in a big government USA program because at least you trust the US government more than you did your own government back home. Totally different in Cuba, totally different in Venezuela, totally different in Argentina. Okay, where the state is the problem. And this is very close to home for me because my family's Cuban. My grandfather that I never got to meet, okay, was a reporter in Cuba that was jailed by Fidel Castro, and that this literacy program that Bernie Sanders talked about on and extolled the benefits of, not everything that Fidel Castro did was bad. He had a very prolific literacy program. Yeah, that literacy program was a propaganda program where they came to your house. You had to swear allegiance to the frickin' state, and they counted all the valuables in your home, and they would come back and count the valuables when you went on vacation because they knew if you were trying to flee the country, you would take valuables with you. So my family came to the United States of America with a Coke bottle and like 5 Cuban, it's not pesos. I can't remember what their currency was. But, with like a single bill in their wallet because they had to leave everything, even the candlesticks that were made out of silver at home. And I served my mission in Argentina where Che Guevara is from. You know what I'm saying? His great liberation that he talks about of the people was because he killed everybody. I mean, he literally killed everybody. And when he ran out of adults, he dragged mothers to watch 13-year-olds and 8-year-olds get shot while he laughed at them. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, at what point does America just reject this as what it is? And I'm sorry, I don't want to go on some crazy anti-Bernie rant. You know what I'm saying? But to be honest with you, I can't believe this didn't happen sooner. And the only reason why it didn't happen sooner is because Republicans were saying it. And so only the small niche of Fox News and talk radio is saying, hey, this Bernie guy and his ideas are dangerous. Look what happened in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s in these communist regimes. But now that and the reason why the mainstream media didn't defend him was because the progressives were always kind of pushing along the standard corporate Democrats with him. And we know that the media loves their corporate Democrats. But now that the corporate Democrats are under fire, that's the only reason why Anderson Cooper's like, dude, tell us how you're going to pay for this. Because now you're making regular Democrats look bad. And we're afraid you actually might just storm our castle and win. Because correct me if I'm wrong, is he not on pace to win, Cody?
He's on pace to win, but we can do it. I don't want to get too far. He's on pace.
A technical win, a plurality win.
He's on pace to win the nomination. I think that they'll revise some forecasts and a few votes here. But what's more interesting is the fact that Bernie Sanders more or less is performing about the same as he did in 2016, really. Yeah, it's just instead of having 56% of the votes scattered amongst 7 candidates, they went to Hillary Clinton instead, so she won. I mean, he's really kind of been where he's been. And like I said, he got killed in Florida last time. I think the bigger thing is just it is interesting seeing as the idea that he's actually maybe could win this is continuing to, and it's the same thing that happened with Trump in 2016. Once it got in the minds of a lot of these Republicans that Trump might win, all of a sudden, Never Trump exploded.
Oh, and you called it.
I think we're seeing the same thing with Bernie here. Once these people realize, like, oh my God, Bernie can actually win this, because what they're realizing is there's no Hillary. There is no other candidate. Bernie Sanders only needs. Bernie Sanders needs 14 people to vote for him and he'll win some of these states. Like, it's crazy. Like, he doesn't need that many people to vote for him and there's so many votes going elsewhere. I think they're starting to realize that, and it's freaking the establishment types out. MSNBC was on fire on Saturday because Bernie Sanders basically performed the same he did in 2016, but this time no one was there to stop him. Like, it's really funny to watch this growing swell, but I do think the bigger thing we'll see from the Never Bernie movement growing, though, and the more of, I think, what it's going to take as the form I think it'll take, is I guess a better way of putting this, is we're going to see more people just start to dig into Bernie's past. I've seen it already. I've seen 2016 stuff come back. We're going to see Bernie Sanders, for one of the first times in a while since he ran against Hillary, really get all of it brought against him, the full force of the media.
And here's the other thing is he's now getting fire from directions he's never anticipated it. Actually, I shouldn't say never anticipated, but haven't been traditionally sources of opposition for him, okay? Because you know who's doing it now? Now the Latinos are doing it.
Well, I mean, he did. It's important to remember he did get a solid Latino vote in Nevada on Saturday.
Okay, yeah, but remember, that's a different kind of Latino. In the Western United States of America, you generally get Central Americans. You get a lot of Ecuadorians. You got a lot of Guatemaltecos, and it's culturally completely different. Okay. These were never countries that were dominated by Russia like Cuba was. Yeah, these are countries like Mexico's beautiful. I love the people. I love the culture. I love everything about it, okay? But it's been mired in this kind of crappy corruption for 300 years that they've never liberated themselves with, and the cartels are the problem. It is completely different in Venezuela and Cuba. And then guess where the highest concentration of Venezuelans in the United States of America are? Since 2000, like you can pull up the article right here, there's been explosive growth of Venezuelans. And by the way, it was already the highest concentration of people that hate communism, hate socialism. Added to the single highest immigrant center for Cubans, you know what I'm saying? Not just from flotillas, but from individual escapees, from legitimate escapees, refugees, the whole 9 yards. I mean, if you've ever been to South Florida, you might as well have just moved to Havana. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might as well have just moved to Havana.
Just I don't want to cut you off too far, but just to the point, like, yes, this is how Bernie Sanders performed in 2016 in Florida. He got crushed. He didn't perform very well at all. Like, what he was selling, people weren't buying in Florida. I mean, I think that's one thing too. It's really kind of fascinating. I want to highlight it more as that happens, so stay tuned. But for example, if Bernie Sanders, there's a lot of states Bernie Sanders could win with like a 7 to 8 point cushion that he was losing by 35 points in 2016 without winning one additional vote. I mean, I think the real Never Bernie movement, if they really want to focus on it, they need to focus on the fact the establishment crumbled. Really, Bernie hasn't won anything. They're losing to him. He's done nothing different. Yeah. He's basically getting the same share of votes. He's basically getting the same support. It's just they felt there was no candidate fielded against them. So I don't know. Like I said, I definitely, I would never vote for Bernie. Don't support him. I think it's hilarious, though, that they've been so inept at fielding a candidate against Bernie. Some desperate Never Bernie movement's going to have to form because they're like, oh my God, this is there's so many people in the Democratic establishment that are just having that was McGovern, right? That just kind of obliterate, just like
1972
flashbacks
McGovern.
of oh my God, not again. And if Bernie Sanders is going to win the primary with a similar performance to 2016, which was a loss for him, then yeah, man, that's an uphill battle in the general. So I could see why it's forming. But
you also called it on Twitter a couple of days ago where you said as soon as the establishment realizes that Bernie actually can win, the grifting class will start coming out in droves. And now we're seeing all of these articles. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess I don't want to
popping up.
I don't like calling out random stuff, but this did kind of. it didn't bother me. Yeah, this was a good example. This is an article from The Intercept, and it said, finally, can we all agree everything we were told was wrong about Bernie Sanders? Reference to his Nevada finish, right? So they go down here and they talk about, can we agree in the wake of primary contests in Iowa, New Hampshire, and now Nevada that everything we were told Bernie Sanders was wrong? The press, the pundits, the politicians are all wrong about him. And they go on, they compare it to the invasion of Iraq. Holy cow. Like I said, Bernie Sanders got about 47% of the vote in 2016 in Nevada. He got about 47% of the vote in 2020 in Nevada. It's just, there's no Hillary this time. We are seeing that stuff happen. But again, if there was a legitimate candidate fielded against Bernie Sanders by Democrats, Bernie Sanders will say he isn't a Democrat, he's running against them anyway. They'd probably be winning right now, the same they did in 2016. But then anyway.
Well, you know what Bernie needs? Bernie Sanders needs to start paying people to do tweets for him. You know what I'm saying? Like Michael Bloomberg. In fact, some really cool, interesting.
Well, hold on. So anyway, we're talking about Michael Bloomberg here because there's a couple things here, and I want to make sure we get into.
Yeah, we got to bring up
we get
these
into everything correctly.
articles on Bloomberg now, man.
Well, hold on. So anyway, moving into it.
Okay, so anyway, let us know what you think. Is Bloomberg a victim? Did he do it himself? Is it part of the good fight, or is it just a hoax? Just let us know what you guys think about Bernie, about Yang, about Bloomberg, the whole 9 yards. Follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1 or on Instagram at Problem Solver Politics. And if you can, join the channel. It's a very inexpensive way to make sure that these videos keep coming to you free of charge on YouTube. This is Problem Solver Politics. Actually, I shouldn't say free of charge. Without corporate sponsorship. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.